Alrighty. Hey there, everybody. My name is Corey Jones, and I'm with Compassion Works for All. And as I always say, we provide mindfulness and meditation programs in jails and prisons. We're based out of Little Rock, and we operate primarily in Central Arkansas. We also have a nationwide newsletter that goes out to about 3,500 people in all 50 states and in 4 different countries. And so mindful meditation is what our primary work is. And so if that's something that you're interested in getting involved with, we always welcome volunteers. We always welcome donors. I say I owe that to my board of directors to be sure to mention whenever I'm given the opportunity. And if you have a soft spot in your heart for people who are incarcerated, especially, we would love to talk to you about how you might get involved with that. Today, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about our emotions, emotions that can sometimes be positive, but also emotions that can sometimes create some negative ripple effects in our life. One thing that I never got into that always fascinated me is improv comedy. I don't know how familiar you are with improv. Maybe some of you either watching or watching the recording, maybe you have been involved in it in your own life, but I've watched some improv troupes from time to time, and I'm always so impressed with how quickly they can take just some very simple facts and develop this entire story. And developing the story is impressive on its own account, but doing it in a way that makes an audience laugh is also just really, it requires some talent. But one of my favorite things about improv is the way in which one of the #1 rules is whatever your partner on stage does, that's just true now. So you just have to accept it. So if your partner on stage is eating an apple, that's reality now. You have to move forward in the scene with your partner on stage eating an apple. You can't change it. You can't tell them, no, you're not eating an apple, you're eating an orange. You just have to go with the apple. And I think that's such a great practice. What a wonderful mindfulness practice, to just accept what's right in front of you and to move forward with it. That's really, really hard to do. In case you are unaware, we have a really hard time as people accepting what's right in front of us. I'm learning as I get older that there are some moments that call for resistance and some moments that call for acceptance. And what I'm especially learning the older I get is that the moments that call for acceptance far outweigh the moments that call for resistance. Most of our day, we go through moments that just call for acceptance, and yet we can put up such resistance, especially when we are not getting the outcome that we think we should be getting. If you want to know how tightly you're clinging to particular outcomes in life, just pay attention to what happens to you when you don't get it. When life goes in a direction other than what you thought it would be, pay attention to the emotional response you have to that, and that'll be a good indication of how tightly you cling to your outcomes in life. And the tighter we cling to particular outcomes, the stronger our emotional reaction is when we don't get it. And this can be in small things, like you go to the restaurant and you order a burger and you ask for no onions on your burger, and then you bite into it and there's a big old onion on it. That in some cases we feel like that's a call for resistance, and we storm up to the counter and we yell at the 16-year-old kid who gave us the burger about how he did it wrong, and we want it to be done right, and we lose our cool with them. The other option is to just calmly take the onion off your burger and just accept what you've been given. But so it happens in small things, but it can also happen in large things, in major things. We think we're going to get a raise and we don't. We think we're going to get a job that we end up not getting. And this especially reveals itself in interpersonal interactions. Right now, you might be thinking to yourself, gee, I thought this meditation time was going to go different than it's going right now. Maybe I'm not behaving in a way that you thought I would behave today. And that's causing you some anxiety and a little bit of stress. And so we do this in our daily interactions with people. We cling to what we think the outcome should be. And when we don't get that outcome, it creates an emotional explosion. And so that's where mindfulness and meditation especially come in. So much of a mindful lifestyle, beyond just meditation, but so much of a mindful lifestyle is living in that way that improv comedy troupes know. It's living in that way of acceptance, that I'm going to accept what's right in front of me and I'm going to move forward with it without clinging to the outcome. And so in my interpersonal relationships and in my interactions with other people, I'm going to recognize that you have total freedom to behave in whatever way you're going to behave. And just because I want you to behave in a particular way, that doesn't mean that you're going to. And so I can either allow your behavior to create an emotional explosion within me, or I can decide to be mindful and keep my level of calm and peace and joy and equanimity inside myself, regardless of how you're acting. And that's really where we want to get to. The answer to all of our emotional outbursts, the answer to our anger, the answer to our feelings of anxiety and stress, the answer to that is the practice of acceptance. Recognizing that there are times to resist, but most of life is a time to accept. And when we can get those right, when we can figure out, okay, now is the time to resist, and now is the time to accept, and we're on to some wise ways of living. And so that's my thought for today as we enter into meditation time, that there are times for resistance, but by and large, most of life is a time for acceptance. And when we can practice that good state of acceptance, it means that we're in control of our emotions and we're not opening our emotions up to those around us, to the situations around us, to dictate how we feel and to dictate how we respond. We're in charge of it. I heard the analogy this morning that when we are not in control of our anger, when we're not in control of our emotional responses, it's like we're a computer without a keyboard. And something else is making all the things happen on the computer. When really what we need is to take charge of the keyboard and give the output that we want. So if you want your output as a human person to be kindness, to be empathy, to be respect, if you want your output to be joyful and happy and content, then you need to take control of that and make that the output. Because otherwise you're just allowing everyone else to control you. Okay, I'm saying saying a couple of things in many different ways. So that's my self-prompt to move into our meditation time. I have officially been talking for too long. So I hope that you're still with me. And then as we move into this meditation time today, I would like for you to pay attention to what you notice rising and to what you notice falling. Everything that is subject to arising is also subject to ceasing, subject to stopping. So if you feel a bit of stress or anxiety or anger or some kind of negative emotion that has arisen within you, notice how long it takes for it to die back down, because it will, because everything does. So we're just going to pay attention to ourselves today during our meditation time. I'll keep an eye on the clock. We'll be here for about 16 or 17 minutes, and I'll guide us through. So you don't have to worry about the clock or the time. Just follow along with the prompts. I invite you into a mindful posture as we begin. And we'll begin with the sound of 3 bells. So go ahead and let your mind do whatever your mind is doing. You might be thinking about a lot of things. You might feel your mind racing a bit. That's fine. We're just going to let that happen. Let's pay some careful attention to what our bodies are doing right now. And have your feet flat on the floor. Let your back be upright, not rigid, but comfortably attentive. You can fold your hands comfortably in your lap. You want to be relaxed, but yet still paying attention. Let your shoulders relax and fall away from your ears. And unclench your jaw by creating some space between your teeth. And angle your face downward just slightly. And you can either close your eyes or leave them open, whatever is most comfortable. But notice what arises within you, within your thoughts, within your emotions. Notice what arises when you are being mindful of your body. We tend to think that everything that we experience is only from the neck up, but our body communicates with our mind. And so when our body is mindful, when we are intentional with how we're sitting, intentional with our posture, it sends a signal to our mind that everything is okay and that the mind has control over the moment and over our entire self. So just notice how you feel by being mindful with your posture. Sometimes it can be difficult to give language to our emotions or to our thoughts. And so it might be helpful to just categorize them as positive or negative. I have a positive reaction when I'm mindful with my body. Notice if there are any places of stress or tension. Sometimes in meditation, I can feel myself pushing against the floor with my feet, and I have to remind myself to relax. Sometimes during meditation, I feel a little bit of tightness in my lower back. So I breathe deeply into it and imagine the muscles releasing. And sometimes during meditation, I feel stress in my shoulders and my neck. And I breathe into those and maybe roll my head around a bit. Notice the places where you're tense. Notice the places where you're striving. And then pay attention to what happens emotionally whenever you let that tension go. And now let's turn our attention to what's happening around us. We're all sitting in different places in front of our computer screens. In the room where I'm sitting, I can hear a train going behind me. It's loud, it's rumbling down the tracks. And this is an opportunity for me to decide if I'm going to resist that sound or if I'm going to accept that sound. And so the same for you. Pay attention to a sound that you hear or something that might otherwise seem like a distraction around you. And you get to decide, is this going to be something that I resist? Is it something that's going to make me frustrated and angry? Something that's going to make me irritable because here I am trying to meditate and be calm? Or is it something I'm going to calmly accept? When we're being mindful, we recognize that we have the choice over whether to resist or accept. And acceptance requires an intentional act of our mind. And so as you pay attention to the distractions around you, notice how it feels to choose to accept them. Observe them without judgment. Does this help with your tension, help with your anxiety, help with your stress? Does it cause you to feel a little bit more at peace? And if it continues to make you feel negative feelings, negative thoughts, if it continues to stress you out, just remind yourself that whatever is subject to arising is also subject to ceasing. I don't know what the sounds are like in the room where you are, but the last car of the train just went by outside my window. It's very quiet in the room again. This is a kind reminder that everything that can arise is also subject to ceasing. And that includes our own emotions. Just because I feel angry right now doesn't mean I'm going to feel angry 5 minutes from now. Just because I feel happy right now doesn't mean I'm going to feel happy 5 minutes from now. Because everything that is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. And this is very good news. It's good news because we don't have to react to everything that we feel. If someone says something to us and it hurts our feelings or it triggers a feeling of anger, of intense emotion, we can remind ourselves that that anger, that offense, that intense emotion that has arisen within us will eventually stop. And how do I want to behave in the meantime? What sort of person am I trying to become? And how does that person respond to a feeling of anger? If your thoughts have drifted, that's okay. Gently bring them back. Remind yourself to be present. Being present is one of the most unique and powerful gifts we have when it comes to managing and controlling the emotions we feel. Because when we're present, we're just observers. We're not reacting, we're not engaging in a heated emotional way. We simply pay attention to our emotions, but we do so the same way we pay attention to a book we're reading, the way we pay attention to a movie. We're watching it occur with some curiosity. And so being present is a wonderful way to observe what's happening within us, and it's a wonderful way to observe what's happening around us without attaching our emotion to it. Sometimes things can feel a bit overwhelming and we need some help. We know that a reaction is coming. We feel that intense emotion boiling and it's about to spill over, and we're going to say something we wish we hadn't said. And so, another gift that we have in those moments is the gift of our breath. Our breath, especially when we breathe in and out through the nose, can act like a remote control for our brain. Taking a deep inhale through the nose and letting out a long exhale through the nose. This sends a signal to our brain to pause, to observe. So, our breath, this thing that's with us that we use multiple times every second, that we don't even think about often, it's an incredibly powerful tool for keeping us rooted in the present. And so, even if right now you're having a hard time staying focused in the present moment, you can always turn to your breath. Pay attention as you inhale and pay attention as you exhale. And as you do this, pay attention to what it does to your emotional state. As you breathe, do you feel yourself rising up in emotional intensity, or do you feel yourself lowering and leveling out? Most of the time, this helps us lower and level out our emotional intensity. So let's spend a few moments just focused on our breath. If your mind is drifted, you can practice bringing it back to the present by focusing on your breath again. And we are once more also going to pay attention to the emotions as they rise and the emotions as they cease. As we come into our final 30 seconds or so of our meditation, make a note of how you feel after spending some intentional time in the present moment, some intentional time with your body, some intentional time with your thoughts and your senses, and some intentional time with your breath. Notice how ready you are to observe and respond rather than react. You are in control of who you are going to be and how you are going to behave, regardless of what's happening around you. You are the person who can decide what to do with the emotions as they arise. And the more we practice being kind, the more we practice being compassionate, the more we practice being calm and holding our equanimity, the stronger we become in those areas. And so as we come to the end of our time, bring your mind back into the present if it's drifted. Take one final deep inhale. And as you breathe out, you can open your eyes. As always, I hope that that was useful. And I hope that as you move throughout your day, you recognize that um, so many things are an opportunity to practice acceptance, and everything is going to challenge our ability to do that. But if we can see it that way, if we can see everything that arises as a challenge, am I going to practice acceptance or am I going to practice resistance? Um, then it becomes almost a joy to see how strong we really are, how much we can really accept and maintain our sense of peace and calm inwardly without being impacted by what's going on around us. So that's what I'm going to be working toward today. And I invite you all to do the same. So that's what I've got for today. Everyone have a great day and a great week.